So look, just to welcome everybody, this is our main meeting of the World Intellectual Forum. And welcome to everyone. And the point of these meetings, because of this, is to get together and share ideas on important topics affecting the world. The World Intellectual Forum is the body. We don't have the money, prestige, and status of the World Economic Forum, but that's kind of deliberate. We're the low-key ones. We're with Robin Hood Forest. They're off in Castle of the Sheriff of Nottingham, you know, the elites of the. So we're the people. But the people also have a voice and they have mind and intellect. And so we're trying to reason together some of these complex problems facing the world. For those that are new to it, the World Intellectual Forum was set up in India in 2017 in Hyderabad by, a coming together of scientists and also religious leaders. Dr. Swami Nathan, who's our with us, he sends his apologies. But we've got other people involved from all different parts of the world, America and Russia and so on. And so we're joined by different people today. Each of these monthly meetings is slightly different. And it's my honor to organize the European section for the World Intellectual Forum. So let's just introduce ourselves briefly. So I'm Thomas, I'm your host. I'm a philosopher and historian and a peace. I believe in Fichte's saying, the great German intellectual, that thinking is also an activity. So by thinking together, we are actually helping to generate an energy that hopefully can solve the very big problems we're facing, such as the pandemic, such as the ongoing war in the Middle East, the unresolved problem of Israel, Palestine, and generally ethnic conflicts and religious conflicts that are going on in the world, in Kashmir and elsewhere. Okay, so that's enough from me. Welcome to everyone. So let's have Christian. Could you introduce yourself? You'll have to unmute, sir.
Well, I'm related to arts, culture, and education, located in Berlin. And let's say, even if Thomas and I, we know each other or we are spiritually related, let's say 200 years, but we met recently. And it is to me a privilege and an honor having the chance to be part of your group, to share ideas and in particular to share solutions we can influence. And because there are many valuable rounds of individuals, and but what is the action? And I'm so-called action-oriented, and I was angry with education, with the level of awareness in the societies and arts and culture, and said how to give a push. And I know that sometimes competition is a trigger to get things done, or at least to push things. And so I said, let's set up a floor of education with music and culture worldwide. And I took the example from the Olympic Games. They brought the world together by uniting things which are part of us, to move, to have sports, to have fun. And the so-called balancing partnership out of ancient times in Greece was Delphic, the spiritual games of Delphi, as the opponent to Olympia. Olympia praised Zeus, the god Zeus, godfather, and Delphi, Apollo, god of beauty, health, let's say of the arts in general. And so I said, let's give the balance, let's help the balance to come alive. And out of this, I collected my friends and partners I met throughout tens of years and said, let's initiate the International Delphic Council as the largest forum for arts, culture, education to come.
Okay, I'm going to pause you. That's brilliant by introduction, but I don't want you to say everything. Save it for later. You'll have a slot in the agenda. Tell us more then. But let me just say to Christian that we're committed to organizing the Delphic Games. And I'm hoping everyone in the World Intellectual Forum is going to provide support and sustenance. And we want people from all over the world to come to Delphi. It was the sacred center of Europe. And Apollo was the god of philosophy, reason, and all the rest of it. But he also worked with the 9 muses. We shouldn't forget the muses, Christian.
Yes, true. Well, it cannot be, let's say the difficulty is to take ancient thoughts and so-called historic facts and turn it into our days, daily life, because very often we are divided. The fields of science are very much divided. One separates from the other, and we are not trained in uniting the knowledge and to share knowledge and results. And with this, we have parallel worlds. We have lots of forum, lots of talks, but we don't share and come to solutions. And to organize or reorganize the world of culture or the arts was very difficult, because when you hear, oh, do you like culture? Do you like arts? Everyone does. But everyone understands something different. Ask them. And so we had to find a system, how to sort, how to organize, restructure the world of culture, or to make it closer, deeper, tighter, the world of arts. Because culture you cannot compare. If it's truly meant, it is unique in itself.
Sure.
Artistic skill is something different.
No, I agree 100%. So look, we
have 6 art categories, and then I stop talking, I promise, Thomas.
Okay. Well, why do you save them for later? I want you to talk properly later. Save the...
Fine. And so I digged into this subject the last 30 years.
I know Christian is an expert, and we're honored to have you with us, and we support the Delphic Games 100%. Let's go on and introduce Kanu. Just tell us about your work and say hello from where you are.
Thank you, Professor Thomas. I'm Dr. Kanu Megha, and I'm from India, New Delhi, the capital of India. And I'm a PhD graduate in medical biochemistry, and my work was mainly focused on neurological effects of microwave radiation. So during my PhD, I've worked a lot on the neurological effects of the radiation. And after that, I have worked in the area of diabetic neuropathy. So mainly I'm focused in the neuroscience area, and I'm currently located in Dubai. And I'm working as an assistant professor at Manipal University, where I'm teaching in School of Life Sciences, various subjects of life sciences like biochemistry, biotechnology, and other related disciplines. So I'm associated with the World Intellectual Forum for last 3 to 4 months, and it's really a privilege for me to be associated with such a big forum. I've talked 2-3 times on the World Intellectual Forum, where I have discussed the various the role of neuroscience in conflict resolution and peace management, and I have also spoken on the power of Sanskrit as a powerful language which we can use as a tool for building peaceful societies. So today I'll be speaking something else related to neuroscience. So that's all about my introduction.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kanu. We're going to hear your talk shortly. Dr. Siddhartha, do introduce yourself. It's a pleasure to see you again. Yeah. Are you well?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is Kshisagar Siddhartha. That's my full name. I happen to be by qualification a physicist, but then diversified into earth sciences, working right now on disaster management as well as on the rise and fall of Hindi as a language, 2 of them almost jointly, along with the geopolitics of the Tibetan region. These are the three areas of my interest right now. I am more of a thinker. I don't have a formal education to a large extent, largely because I have studied in school only for 1.5 years of a time, and in college only for 30 days of a time. So I keep on moving from one subject to another subject, one interest to another interest. Some time back, I was willing to chase a cyclone, a tropical cyclone, 2 tropical cyclones that lashed India. At other point of a time, I may be with some of the government bodies trying to find a way to solve some of these problems. And at the third time, I may be teaching some students as well. All in all, I go on to think that is on the basis of observation, we can go on to insert a lot of solutions to the problems that the world is facing, provided one is able to develop lateral thinking, one is able to design their thinking in such a manner that they can go on to have a real solution-oriented thinking for the problems. In fact, a lot of problems that the world is facing, they're easily preventable, very, very preventable. I'm an ardent admirer of Dr. Thomas Daffern, and I have been associated with it for almost a year or so right now. And it's a different matter that I keep on coming off and on. And it's always going to be a privilege to be learning from all of this gallery, the August gathering that is going to be here. And I'm still a school, still a learner, and still a student. That's how I go to feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siddhartha. Yes, thanks for your kind words. And Dr. Siddhartha also runs, I think, in India called Transbrahm. I didn't mention this, but that's an important parallel project. So in a sense, we've collaborated to create these monthly forums. We also had an excellent event on Sanatan Dharma. Some of you came to that as a one-off. And we also celebrated International Women's Day together last March, the 8th, I think it was. And so, you know, it's an ongoing collaboration between the Indian intelligentsia and the European. Let's make this a commitment to peace. So thank you for being with us. Bharti Jain, you're with us again from India. Hello, welcome. Introduce yourself. You'll have to unmute. Sorry, your microphone is switched. There we are.
Yeah, Jai Junendra. Good evening, everybody. Myself, Bharti Jain from India, and I am basically a peacemaker and peace lover, as in our family of peace builders. So I am one of the family members of this World Intellectual Forum and heading the youth wing of World Intellectual Forum. Apart, I'm running an NGO, Udan Bharti Sky Foundation, which is working for youth and women empowerment. So we are empowering youth and women for value education and self-development and towards the entrepreneurship. And we just believe that not only physical health, we are also into wellness industry, and it's my own innovation with the name Namokar Gym, which is based on holistic health approach to life, where we believe that we have to work on 5 personalities: physical, mental, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. So everybody has to understand, to live a happy life, we need to incorporate, or we need to work on all the 5 personality, and then only you will be able to align your mind, body, and soul, and you can work towards your goal. And apart, I am an IT person also. So I was with the Ministry of Health as an IT specialist, and I am a mentor of change with the Atal Innovation Lab, Niti Aayog, Government of India. And I'm into advisory board of Rajasthan government, giving advices for women and child development in Rajasthan, India. And how we can incorporate peace with such a small things. So we are into process of incorporating youth, making youth to come forward and work towards the conflict management, and they should be empowered. Apart, we are working on skill development also. So, and during this Corona time, because everybody is facing the issue of oxygen and the unavailability of beds, especially in India, there is a lot of crisis of oxygen, and in many countries also, but in India, it's visible in huge terms. So we have started with the project of use your oxygen lifelines for you by you, because I just believe that we have everything. We are not born with the oxygen cylinder, so we have our system. So if we use our system and if we coordinate with the nature, then there is a less need to move towards the oxygen cylinders. The only thing is you need to create a balance between the nature and your aspirations. And whatever we are facing nowadays, it's just that we as a human played with the nature, and now nature is playing with us. So
sure.
This is what. So we have to work towards, at this time of crisis, yes, we are more working towards how we can resolve the problem of this Corona.
Okay, so that's one of the big topics we're going to be discussing. Thank you very much, Bharti, for your introduction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kate, you're joining us. Katerina, do you want to introduce yourself? You'll have to unmute. And sorry, your microphone is, there we are. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. So I'm Kate Belakova. I have a technical background, so I have a background in technology and design. I'm a recent graduate in human-computer interaction. I did a master's degree, and at the moment I'm exploring different topics to construct a PhD topic for the potential next year. So then thank you, Thomas, for inviting me to this today's meeting, and I'm looking forward to this. And yes, thank you.
And Kate is from, let me just say, from Latvia, but she's a Russian speaker, so she speaks fluent Russian and was educated in Russian. So, and she's come as a volunteer helper here to the Peace Museum in France, just totally randomly yesterday by chance, through Workaway, which is an excellent thing. And yeah, she's very, very, you know, multi-talented, I think, is the way to, yeah, and also did her first degree in Scotland. So I think, for me, Kate represents what Europe should be about, like Latvian, Russian, French, Scottish, and you know, this is, I'm so against Brexit. So thanks, Kate, for coming, and we look forward to your contributions. Sheila, it's your turn, madam. Go for it. You'll have to unmute.
Yes, hi everybody. I'll quickly say what my background is. I've been listening very carefully to everybody, and I've got maybe some things I could bring on the comments that have been made so far. Okay, so I was a teacher for over 20 years. I then retrained to be a psychotherapist, and I did an MA in psychodynamic psychotherapy. And even though I'm 70, I still see people in my office here at the moment on Skype because of the pandemic, but I've just started to see people face to face. I also have worked as an astrologer for about 35 years, as well as doing all the other things. And so I think what's happening in the world at the moment interests me from the point of view that there's massive political change that needs to take place. And this will take a long time, but it's, you know, a lot of people, citizens of various countries are in a pickle, what should we say? They're confused and they don't like what politicians are doing now. And so there've been a lot of marches all over the world. There was a huge one yesterday, and there were nearly 1 million people in London, and it wasn't reported in the media. And that's an interesting thing to think about, because the world media seems to be breaking down. So one of the things that was mentioned by other people that were talking today was about thinking about history and bringing it into the present, because Christian was talking about that quite a bit. And I think that's so important to think about what mankind has been through in the past to try and translate it into nowadays, because we learn our wisdom from our experiences. And as a modern world, we don't seem to take a lot of notice of generally about, you know, what human beings have experienced and learned in the past. I think that has a huge bearing, especially on what's happening in Gaza at the moment. I was absolutely horrified. It was about 2 weeks ago when the Israelis bombed the Al Jazeera offices. I don't know if anybody heard about that. But Al Jazeera, I watch quite a bit because I think it's one of the few media outlets, news outlets, that actually reports what's going on in the rest of the world. And I'm sorry to say that the BBC don't do that. And I find that very perturbing and worrying. The great British institution of the BBC talks about nothing but the pandemic, and we learn nothing about what's happening in the rest of the world. Absolutely nothing, apart from America. Personally, I'm not too interested in just hearing about America. So I found that a shocking thing to see the Al Jazeera offices literally falling to the ground. It was just like 9/11. And the Israelis were kind enough, I'm being ironic and sarcastic, they were kind enough to give 1 hour to people in the building to get out. And they get away with it. And there's something about power that's going on behind the scenes, and the Israelis really need to stop talking about their own suffering and think about what they're inflicting on others, particularly to do with the Palestinians. So you can tell I'm probably quite angry about that. And something has to be done. We can't be passive about it. And also, Barty was talking about aspirations, our human aspirations versus nature. I think that's really significant when she mentioned that, because we seem to have developed in the modern world a feeling of entitlement. And although we talk about the you know, the global warming, climate change, whatever you want to call it, and what's happening to birds and insects and sea life, we don't seem to actually act on it. So I think that's something that we need to think about as a world. And the pandemic, I feel like we can't really accuse China of anything, and because we don't have the evidence, and yet somehow or other we need to get the evidence. So I had a very quick look at what Thomas had written to all of us. And I do think there's some really good points in there, because somebody somewhere has to start investigating. I can see that some people have, but there's so much mystery around COVID, so much mystery. And I know quite a few people that have had it, including my daughter. She was very, very sick, but she didn't go to hospital, but she was very frightened when she had it. But, you know, not that many people actually die of it. Of course, I have great reverence and respect for people that have, but even the numbers of people that have died, we're not even sure about that. I feel like we're in a drug den in a way. You know, we came through a door and we don't know how to get out of the room that we're in. And we're in a puzzle about the whole thing. I'm glad you enjoyed the irony of what I just said, Thomas. So that's quickly my thoughts.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Sheila, for joining us. And Sheila's joining us from near Avebury and Stonehenge. And I was thinking about the maze that these ancient sites represented. In a sense, we're in a sort of maze, and we have to find the way out. So thank you. Okay. Sorry, could Galaxy introduce him or herself? All I'm seeing is a dark screen, but a hand's gone up. Who is this?
Gila. I don't know why you can't see me. I don't know. It's Gila from Israel.
Oh, excellent. Well, introduce yourself, Gila. You're joining us from...
Yeah, but I lost now your, I mean, I'm talking to to the screen. I don't see anybody.
We can't see any picture, but that's all right. Hear your voice. Tell us, introduce yourself for those that don't know you. You coordinate the Peace Institute in Israel, don't you? And we're going to discuss that topic shortly about the Israel-Gaza war. But just say a bit about your background first to introduce yourself. Okay. Right, Gila seems to have had connection problems. Anyway, I'm sure she'll rejoin us. Gila's a psychologist and a graduate of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and has been involved with me on Truth and Reconciliation Commission work in the Middle East. So it's very relevant. And we're going to hear from her a bit later. And nice to welcome Nicola. Thank you for being with us, our media coordinator, who makes the recordings possible and helps with the Institute for some years now. So thank you very much. Okay, I think what we'll do is, because we've got a talk from Kanu lined up, and it's very relevant, I think we should start on a positive note, because there's so much trouble in the world. We could have, you know, a whole meeting just weeping about wars and the COVID and the horrors of the world. Let's.
Okay,
Yeah, Gila, welcome back.
okay.
And we'll go.
No.
Do you want to quickly introduce yourself? I did introduce you, but just say a few words.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm from Israel. I heard what Sheila had to say about Israel, and I would comment on that later on. I've known Thomas for the last 20 years, and we had long conversations over the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I can't agree more with Sheila that the BBC and other media are not covering the conflict in a broader way, which I would like to later to do that. Basically, I'm an holistic psychology, a spiritual teacher. I worked in the information office as well. So I'm a healer. I have many fields of interest, let's put it this way. And I would like to think of myself as a thinker, and one that really wants the best for the world, for better consciousness for everybody else. But not an easy way.
No. Okay.
And I will comment on the Israeli. I don't agree with Sheila at all, but I will comment on that later. I hope I will have the opportunity, because I think it's very important.
Yeah.
I think that I live on a summit of a volcano, of an ongoing conflict, and I wish I could, just join you with your love for art and the other things that were mentioned here, which are part of our world as well. But lately, and in the place that I'm living, I'm experiencing other things as well. So that's for now.
Okay. Right. Thanks, Gila. And you bring a sober note to our meeting, which is important. You've been listening to rockets flying over for the last few weeks. So now there's a ceasefire. Let's hope that holds, and let's try and work out a long-term solution. But we're going to discuss that as one of our main topics. So thank you for coming. And right, let's go back, if we may, to Kanu, if she's still with us. I want to invite her to share. She's been working on a presentation on the neuroscience of love. And I think we'd all agree in this meeting probably that love is going to get us out of this mess. In a sense, it got us into this mess. We're all here the children of love in some way or form. And it's the process of how we come into embodiment So what are the codes? What is love? What does science have to say about love? This is what Kanu's been researching. And let's hope that we can learn some illumination on this. So go for it, Kanu. Share with us your thoughts.
Thanks, thank you, Professor Thomas.
I'm going to make it possible for you to share your screen. If you have a PowerPoint for us, you should be able to share now.
Yeah, I'll try to share. Is it visible, Professor Thomas, the presentation?
It is, we can see it, yes.
Okay. Greetings to you all. Thanks, Professor Thomas, for providing me this opportunity to present once again on World Intellectual Forum. So today I'll be speaking on neuroscience of love. So the neuroanatomy and the neurochemistry behind all different types of love. Okay, so now to start with the love, as we all know, love it's very difficult to put in words the feelings of love. So be it any kind of love, it's very difficult to put it into some few typical words of the definition. So love is basically, it's a plethora of emotions which involves happiness and bliss and a lot of different emotions which gives some kind of feeling which is indescribable. It's not it cannot be described and written in words. So now to talk about the neuroscience behind the love, so what all the neuroanatomical regions and the neurochemistry behind the hormonal role play of love. So let me start with this. Okay, so there are some basic brain techniques which are used to study the regions of the brain which are activated during love, the feelings of love. So one of the most important is the functional MRI. Functional MRI is the technique which is used to scan the regions of the brain which are most active in the different circumstances when certain stimuli are provided to the people. So with this, we just capture the image of the brains and which are activated. There is one more technique which is known as event-related potentials. With this technique, we mainly study the attention of people who are in love by measuring the changes in the brain activity. So here the activity of the brain is also recorded to the different stimuli. Now the stimuli can be of different types. They can be in the form of the pictures shown to the people of their loved ones. It can be their voices. It can be their video clips. So such stimuli can be used to capture the attention of people, and the brain recordings of the different brain regions are captured. So these event-related potentials are time-specific. They are recorded on a millisecond scale. And as I mentioned, the picture of beloved ones can be shown. And at the same time, pictures of friends and the stranger are also shown to the people. And difference in the brain activity are recorded, that what are the differences between the pictures when the beloved ones were shown and the strangers were shown, pictures of the strangers were shown. So brain waves, it is observed that the brain waves, when the people see their pictures of their beloved ones, they are usually larger as compared to when they see the pictures of their friends or the stranger. So here it is clear that when the people see the pictures of their beloved ones, so there is a higher amount of neuron firing, or there is a large amount of brain activity is involved in some regions of the brain. So this is called as neuronal synchrony. This term is given called as usually neuronal synchrony. So people who are in love with each other or they are connected, they tend to have the synchrony within their brain regions. Now the passion of love, as we all know, it creates a euphoria or happiness and a sense of exhilaration that is certainly indescribable and cannot be written in words, cannot be defined. So these are the few brain regions. These are the different sections of the brain, sagittal, coronal, and the transverse sections, where we can see in the yellow and red regions, these are the areas which are recorded to be activated during the experiments, where the pictures of the beloved ones of people, they are shown to them, as compared to the pictures of the strangers or friends. So we can see here, there are certain areas in brain which are associated with reward, motivation, happiness, like cerebellum, hippocampus, insula, putamen. So there are certain regions which are associated with reward and motivation. They are activated during these experiments when people see the pictures of their loved ones. So now this is all, we all know that the brain also is just like any other organ of the body, it is also made up of some specialized cells, and the specialized cells are named as neurons. And these neurons release certain chemicals which are known as neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters, they are transmitted from one cell to another, and they finally evoke the certain response. And from the area of release, the neurotransmitters are transmitted to the target area, and they evoke some response, some physical responses. So now to come to the neuroanatomy and the neurochemistry of love. So neuroanatomy is mainly the regions of the brain which are associated with love, and neurochemistry is mainly the study of those neurochemicals which are associated with love. So the area which are associated with feelings of love, as I already mentioned, these are the areas which are also the areas of reward, motivation, and some like desire and addiction. So these are the same areas. So we can say the areas which are evoked during the when the people ingest some sort of cocaine drugs or some kind of addictive drugs. So those are the same areas which are associated with love in other cases. So now the neurotransmitter which is mainly associated with love here is the dopamine. So dopamine is the main important neurotransmitters which is linked with the feelings of love. So there is a cocktail of hormones. As I mentioned, the dopamine is the most important one. Other than dopamine, there are two more important hormones, which is oxytocin, which is also called as love hormone or cuddle hormone. This hormone is mainly released during the in the lactating mothers also. So this is a hormone which strengthens the bonding. This is the hormone which strengthens the bonding and the attachment between the two individuals, be it a mother or a child or two partners. The other one is vasopressin, and the third one is dopamine. So these three are the most important neurohormones or neuromodulators which are associated with feelings of love. Now, brain regions. Now let us talk about the regions of the brain which are associated with the feelings of love. So mainly there are three anatomical regions which are strongly linked with the feelings of love. First one is ventral tegmental area, which releases the dopamine. Dopamine is the hormone. Nucleus accumbens releases oxytocin, which is the love hormone. Ventral pallidum releases vasopressin. So vasopressin is the hormone which mainly constricts the blood vessels and increases the blood pressure. So usually it is observed that when the people are in, they are experiencing the feelings of love, they are having rapid heartbeats and rapid pulses. So receptors of all these hormones, they are located in various parts of the brain. And when people are experiencing the feeling of love, so these hormones travel from the site of release to the various receptors where they need to perform their action. So the same things happen in the romantic love as well as the maternal love, the love between partners as well as the maternal love. As I already mentioned, these are the same regions which become active when opioid drugs like cocaine are ingested. So this is the same kind of feeling when people are in love. So they also feel some similar kind of responses, similar kind of behavior in their out of their these neurotransmitters as they experience when the drugs are ingested, because the same centers are activated. So now what happens in the early stages of love, when the people are during their early stages of love, during this time, people experience some kind of obsessive compulsive disorder. So behaviors we experience during obsessive compulsive disorder. So similar kind of experiences are, they can be seen in the early stages of people in early stages of love. So what happens during this time, the serotonin, which is the hormone associated with appetite and mood, this is reduced with increase in the dopamine. So dopamine is suppressing the serotonin, and because of the serotonin reduction, in the early stages of love, people are experiencing some sort of very, kind of exceptionally happy feeling. So during this phase, when they are in early stages of love, they don't have any mood changes. They don't experience any mood changes. They're completely trusting the person on which with whom they are attached. So similarly, nerve growth factor is also elevated. Now the amygdala, which is the region associated with emotions and also associated with fear, that region is also deactivated. Now, in the early stages of love, it is seen that when people are strongly attached to each other, so they don't have any sense of fear. They don't have any, they are not scared of anyone. So those who are in love in the early stages, they are very, they are ready to revolt, sort of like that. So the third most important thing is that during this romantic love, people are the regions of the brain which are related to the critical judgment are highly suppressed. So during these stages of love, people are not able to take critical decisions. They are not able to judge, take the correct decisions. So because the frontal cortex area, some of the frontal cortex area which are related to the critical judgment are deactivated. So here it can be seen in the three regions. The cortical deactivations can be seen in yellow and red color in the regions of brain of people who are in love. So these regions have been seen as compared to other people in the control cases who were not in love or who did not have long-lasting relationships. So these regions were compared with their counterparts. Now the question comes, we always say that love is blind. So what should be said actually in the correct way? Love is blind or unity in love? Because it's a complete role play of hormones. It's a complete role play of hormones here. So we cannot exactly say that love is blind. So love is actually the suspension of judgment. And the judgment is suspended because the frontal cortex is deactivated during the early stages. So that is the reason it is generally interpreted as madness. So people generally interpret this as a madness, but it is not the case. Those who are in love, they suspend the judgment about their lovers, but it is very interesting to see that they do not suspend their judgment for is not suspended for other things. It might be possible that they are not able to judge correctly about their partners, but they are absolutely able to judge about other things. They can easily judge about what is wrong with other people, what is right with, what scientific information is correct, which book is better to read, which place is better to go. So like that, they have other judgments very well, at their place as compared to their judgment associated with their own partners. So such suspension of judgment is very selective for a very specific set of connections and brain operations when it comes to love. So ideally, it should be said that it is unity in love, but it should not be. It's not right to say that love is blind. Okay, so the Socrates from the Plato's Phaedrus quotes that the irrational desire that leads us towards the enjoyment of beauty and overpowers the judgment that directs us towards what is right, and that is victorious. This fully strengthens the desires related to it, and this strength is called as love. And Plato also considers in the Phaedrus that the madness which we generally call is in love, comes from the god. The sense is merely just human. What we call it as a madness, it's just a human, but this actually comes from God. So Nietzsche also writes, there is always some madness in love, but there is always a reason in madness. Without reason, there is no madness. The reason has to be sought. And what is that reason? The reason lies in the neurobiological activation and deactivation of some regions. So that is what we have talked. So there are some regions activated and some regions are deactivated in brain, due to which these responses are evoked. Now let us talk about the neural correlates of maternal love. So far I talked about the romantic love, which is between the partners. Now the maternal love, which doesn't need to be explained, it is absolutely out of the world feeling. So what mothers have for their children, and maternal love has no, this is also cannot be described in words. So, well, this is my picture. It was taken 7 years back. It is me and my son. So, yeah. So when we compare the maternal love with the romantic love, which is between two partners, so there are some differences and there are some similarities as well. So the areas which are activated during the maternal love, they are more or less same, which are activated in the romantic love. But here, in case of maternal love, mothers are more, they pay more attention toward the faces of their children. Why? Because by looking at the faces of their children, they can judge their well-being. They can easily identify that their needs. So areas activated by romantic feelings shares almost the similar parts. And the ventral tegmental area is the most important one, which I discussed earlier also. This is the region which evokes the response and releases the most important neurotransmitters, dopamine. So dopamine is the core neurotransmitters which is associated with love in both the cases, in maternal as well as the romantic love. Now we can see here, this is the picture which shows the difference between the maternal love and the romantic love. So some of the regions are overlapping. So as I already mentioned, the regions are overlapping. So some regions which are activated in in romantic love are also activated in maternal love. It means the regions of the brain which are associated with reward, motivation are also activated in the maternal love, because this is some kind of love which is associated with motivation and reward and giving the importance to the other person. Yes, so in both the cases, maternal and the romantic love, there are two purposes. First one is the evolutionary purpose, because in both the cases, the individuals who are involved, they have to maintain and promote the species. That is the most important reason. The second one is the functional purpose. Functional purpose refers to the purpose with which individuals need to stay together for long period of time. So both these purposes are very well calculated by the nature, so that there is a firm bonding between the individuals by giving them the rewarding experiences. So in both the cases, one has to give the rewarding experiences to another and vice versa. Strong activation in parts of the brain that are specific for the faces, as I discussed. In maternal love, more importance is given to the reading of the children expression, which is not there in the romantic love. In the romantic love, the individuals are not giving any importance to the facial expressions. But in maternal love, it is very important that mother reads the expression of the child and understands their well-being and pays constant attention during their fundamental years. Now, the hypothalamus, which is activated in the romantic love, is not activated in maternal love. That is one of the differences. And also that commonly activated regions are the regions which are located in the striatum, which are the part of reward system. This is the same in both the cases. There is one very important, very interesting difference, that in romantic love, as I already mentioned, the prefrontal cortex is deactivated. But the maternal love, as I already said, it is a very supreme kind of love. So that judgment is not deactivated, which is deactivated in the romantic love. So in maternal love, unlike romantic love, the judgment is not suspended, and mothers are a good deal of more indulgent with their children and perhaps very less likely to fault with them. So that is very interesting to know. So these are in this picture, we can see the deactivations in maternal and the romantic love, which are little different. Okay, so now comes what is the correlation between love and beauty? So far, we have discussed with this romantic love and maternal love, which is not associated with the, appearance. So now let us talk about the beauty and love, how beauty is associated with love. So beauty, for ages, it has been always considered as a way to evoke the sentiment of love, because usually it is always taken like that. The physical appearance and the attractive appearance is considered as the tool to evoke the sentiment of love. It has been throughout the history, it has been described as the beauty is an important source which evokes the love. Like the Dante falls in the love with Beatrice because he finds her beautiful and longs to see that which is hidden in her physique. the Lord Krishna steals the mind with his beauty and vibrant personality. So definitely somehow beauty is associated with love, evoking the response of love. The Majnu and Laila, they were the two great lovers in Indian history. So Majnu was obsessed with Laila by her beauty. Even if she doesn't seem to be beautiful to others, Majnu would say that you borrow my eyes. So it is very, very correctly said that beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. So it depends on the person how they see the beauty in other person. So the face of a loved person engages two cortical regions. The one is insula and the anterior cingulate. So because of these two regions, the beauty evokes the response of love. Now the attractive faces are also associated with deactivation of frontal cortex, because when a person sees the other individual who is attractive, who has attractive face, or the attractive physique, the frontal cortex area, which is mainly responsible for the judgment and critical thinking, is deactivated. And also the amygdala is also deactivated. So during this phase, when there is a physical attraction, so the judgmental thinking is not there. Even the fear is also not there. So this is one kind of response. In love, not only the judgment is less severe, this is also interesting, that not only the judgment which is suspended, but also the apprehension by which we survey the faces, by which we look at the faces, is also suspended. So if one person has evoked certain response for certain individual, so the apprehension with which that person will survey the other faces will also be suspended. So that person will not be interested in other faces at that point of time. So yeah, so there are these three regions, as I already mentioned: nucleus accumbens, ventral pallidum, and the ventral tegmental area, which releases the dopamine. So these three regions are associated with the different kind of feelings. Some regions are associated with a sense of smell, color. That is why it is usually seen that if two individuals are connected with each other, they can easily correlate some particular smell or color or song with their partner. So they can easily correlate with such feelings. And also there are signals of motivation and reward. Yeah. So, and there are definitely, these are the three different forms. I would not say love. These are like lust, attraction, and attachment. So all these three types of, all these three forms involves different role play of hormones. When it comes to the lust, it is only associated with the sexual hormones, the male and female hormones, which is testosterone and the estrogen. And the attraction involves dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. Whereas the attachment, when it comes, which is the purest form of love, I would say, it involves oxytocin and vasopressin. So oxytocin is the hormone which is the hormone which this is the hormone which strengthens the bonding between two individuals. And this is also the hormone which is released during the lactation in breastfeeding mothers. Yes, now the dopamine and oxytocin, these are the two hormones which needs to have a moderate level in brain. So what happens when dopamine is in certain amounts, in the moderate doses, it will help us to enjoy the exciting events, relationships, etc. But if there is excessive dopamine in our brain, if we are too much indulged in these kind of love feelings and the excessive dopamine is released, we become addicted to our partners. We may become addicted to some sort of food, some type of drug, or may lead to unhealthy emotional dependence on our partners. That's why there has to be a balance between dopamine and oxytocin. The healthy levels of oxytocin help us bond, feel warm and fuzzy towards our companions. Yeah, so with this, I would like to sum up, and I would say that it is very important for us to know that what kind of feelings, what kind of emotions we should carry with us. And it is very well said that harmony makes small things grow, lack of it makes great thing decay. And when the power of love overcomes the love of power, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know the peace. So we should know the power of love and what kind of feelings we must carry with ourselves. So with this, I would like to just give some experiments which have been done in science. Like there have been some experiments where the animals were in their early developmental stages. They were isolated from their parents, from like in the monkeys it has been done, they were isolated from their parents and they were kept in isolated rooms. And what happened, so after a few days, it has been observed that they experienced some sort of disturbing and kind of a very irritating sort of behaviors. So that experiments concluded that during the fundamental years of children, or in the adolescent age also, if the children and adolescent, the growing children are not given the somatosensory affection, kind of affection, physical affection, so they tend to become more aggressive and more abusive. So that is what has been seen in the criminals also. So the criminal studies also, indicate the same things, like the criminals who tend to indulge in some great crimes or terrorists, they also had some sort of broken family relationships and abusive parents. So that is what we need to understand, that during the fundamental years, during the formative ages of the children, we need to give them a physical affection, a sense of touch, care, and the right care. We should need to give them the right care and the right attention. So with this, I would like to finish my presentation. I would stop sharing. And yeah.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Kanu. That was fascinating. And I'm sure there's a lot we could all take from that. If you send me that as a PDF or whatever,
Sure.
I'll share it with everyone here at the meeting, so you can receive that. Does anyone have any questions for Kanu? Because that was fascinating. If you maybe put your hand up, I'll start just generally. I mean, I think you know this, not everyone does, but when I first set up the Peace Studies Institute at the University of London, I set up a journal for us, and it's a journal on the nature of love, because I came to the view, like your Jimi Hendrix thing, that only if we can understand love will we get peace. I still think that, that if we could, and the Beatles and all that period in the 60s and 70s. So my question to you would be, that would be love of humanity, love of, and also love of God, the spiritual side of love. You didn't touch on altruistic love, in your presentation, and you didn't talk about spiritual love. Would they not show up in neuroscience? I mean, do they? I mean, are they real, or is it just? Are we just at the, as you say, the play of hormones? But as a philosopher, I'm pledged to the love of humanity. Is that just a fantasy, or can it be detected?
I would not say it is in spiritual love. I don't know whether there is a role of hormones or not, but definitely it is something which is guided by our consciousness. So when we are involved in some spiritual activities, so there is some what I would say, the consciousness which is guiding us from outside the body. I would not say it is the role of hormones, because here we are talking only the responses which are earthly events, right? The romantic love, maternal love, these are some earthly events. But spiritual is something which is out of the world, which is not associated with our body, that is associated with our soul. So when it comes to the soul, I would not connect it with any anatomical region or any neurochemistry, any hormones with it. So definitely that is something which is other than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Professor Thomas, can I add upon something?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think, in my opinion, that the physical love between two humans or two individuals in one way in the physical world, it is related to the brain, and then related to the acts between the various anatomical parts of the brain. But when we are in a spiritual love, like with the God or whatsoever, whosoever is aware, that time we are in a more mind stage actually. So that time we are in a directly in a mind phase, and that just behave just like as if we are dreaming. So when we dream, we remain in a virtual world, right, in the night while dreaming, and once we wake up we say, oh, it was the dream only. So spiritual love could be in that way different in some capacity, because that time we assume that God is something beyond our physical boundaries, and that time we are working in a mind level, like one step beyond the brain. I hope so.
Yeah, so I would also add something, Professor Thomas. So actually, I was a part of international roundtable last week, which on Alatra TV. So and they talked about life and death and the fictions and the facts associated with it. So there are actually many scientists, many doctors who worked on the near-death experience. So they had their patients who had cardiac arrest, and their patients experienced the cardiac arrest. After that, for a few seconds they experienced the near-death experience. Even after having the brain dead, their brain were dead, still they had some sort of near-death experiences. So it was clearly evidenced with those observations that the anatomy of brain has nothing to relate with the consciousness of the brain. The consciousness is something which is outside, which is not located inside the body.
Well, thank you. Yes, I saw that. I'm going to watch your recording.
Yeah.
And I was just talking last night about but one question is where the soul lives in the body. You say it's nothing to do with the body. The soul must interact with the body. We are incarnated. And some people say that there's a mind in the heart. Some researchers now think that the heart is the location of the soul, and that there's a sort of neurological network around the heart itself. The Institute of Heart Matters researched that. So I don't know. Have you looked into the question of the heart and its role in consciousness at all?
No, I don't.
I would like to add upon something, Thomas.
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
So basically, it's like, as we said, if we see something good, it stimulates, and it stimulates the hormone, right? So when you are into spiritual love, or you are with love with yourself, what exactly our basic feature is? Love is our basic feature that is incorporated when we take birth. Hatred, greed, these are the external things that are incorporated later on. This was not the basic feature. So basic feature is that you love, right? So love is the basic feature that create a balance between your mind, body, and soul. That means all the hormones in your body are perfect. What I am believing. That's why there is no disturbance, and that is the only reason your mind is stable, because hormones are in balance. Why you get angry or why you get excited? Because there is hormonal imbalance. So when you are in the state of loving with yourself or love with God, that means your hormones are aligned and they are perfectly working in your body, right? And I would also add upon one thing when Kanu said that it's the beauty that attracts love. I just believe the beauty that attracts, beauty doesn't attract love. Beauty, if beauty attracts something, that is always a affection or lust, right? It is the love that sees beauty in your face. It's not the face that attracts love. It's the beauty inside you that allows you to fall into love. So that's what we believe. And regarding one point you pointed out for the child or adolescent birth, so I had a study with this. During the first 1,000 days of the childbirth, when the child is in the womb of mother, and up till 2 or 2.5 years of age, that is the total development age of a child and the child's brain. So we need to work upon that 1000 days. If we work upon that 1000 days, so we can make a child to become more peaceful, or it could be towards the violence. So that 1000 days should be very carefully, very, very attentive, and it should be full of peace and love and affection. So that's what I suggested in Government of India as well in my programs, that first 1000 days we should take care of mother and both the child for a peaceful world. Yeah, next one.
Thank you, Bharti. Sheila, you've had your hand up. Do make your question to Kanu or comment about love.
Well, a lot of things that Kanu and how do I pronounce the other name? The other lady who was speaking.
That's correct. Kanu.
Yeah, Kanu. And Bharti, is that the name I call you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So both of them got me thinking about attachment theory, actually, and what happens to human beings when they don't have a very good start, you know, and the attachment style between the mother and the child is so important for the way human beings live their lives and how they respond to the experiences that they have. And then I was thinking about the mention of oxytocin, because I started to think, well, okay, let's turn this on its head. We've been talking about very close love. Let's put it the other way and think about what happens to the human being when they're given very traumatized experiences, which brings me back to talking about the bombing, etc., because we're thinking about two peoples that are trying to live side by side, both of whom have had very difficult histories, and that involves trauma. And it's well known scientifically that trauma raises cortisol in the system as well as many other hormones, and this can affect the way people think. So I'm kind of thinking of the opposite of love, and that is a traumatized experience where there's very little room for hope, really. And what was the other thing? I wrote something else down that I thought was very pertinent to this. It's really about, what I'm saying is that our attachment style, our experiences, particularly trauma, affect the way we deal with other people. And so it's quite well known that if people experience a lot of war, catastrophe, rockets flying overhead and landing, bombs, all of these experiences change the way the mind works. And they may change the way the mind works on a short term, a medium term, or a long term, but it doesn't bring out the best in people because we lose hope. And that seems to fit in with everything else that's been talked about, because being in love and loving is such a hopeful, wonderful feeling. And if you have the opposite, it's very difficult to grab onto that feeling. And that's it, really. That seems to be the way the mind, neuroscience, the brain, thinking, all are connected with each other. And also our feelings, you know, if our mind has been affected and shocked, and our body has been shocked by being in a war, for example, or being treated badly and abused, then it affects the way we respond, and it affects the way we think, and it affects the way we act. So I think it has huge implications for what's happening in Gaza. You know, I'm not saying that either side is suffering more than the other, but, you know, these are people, two peoples who've experienced great deprivation and suffering, and it's affected them. So
yeah, thank you very much, Sheila, for your contribution. Okay, thank you, Kanu, for you know, kickstarting us on the neuroscience of love. I mean, I think you should write a book about it, or at least a paper, because it's a huge topic. Okay, I want to move on slightly different focus now, because we're suffering from this pandemic, and I sent you all a document which I've written. I got a message from the chairman of the World Intellectual Forum about this idea of a commission of inquiry. For those of you that, I think everyone's seen this document. We've been in lockdown for well over a year and a half, and the planetary economy is suffering. Over 3.5 million people have died due to this COVID, and there are many, many millions who've been infected. Many recover. I mean, it's very mysterious, this illness. India's been terribly affected. Latin America too. I was at a thing called the Luxembourg Peace Prize forum yesterday, which I'll talk about a bit later. And somebody there was from Argentina, and Argentina is absolutely decimated by this COVID, as well as India. Latin America is suffering. And so I've been watching this, wondering where this came from. And I've been listening very carefully to the articles, scientific articles, listening to them all. And as a peace thinker, I want to know what is causing so much unpeace. The planet is in dis-ease, which is, if we're at ease, that's a state of harmony, love, peace. But dis-ease means we're in angst, turmoil, and fear. And the planet is going through dis-ease. So where's it come from? Now, the scientific study of medicine has this department called etiology. I used to work in hospitals, and I've taught history of medicine at the University of Oxford and things. Etiology is very interesting. It's the origin of a disease. And the etiology of COVID is unknown. There are theories, you all know the two basic theories, one of which this is a totally natural event. It developed in bats, it then leaped to an animal, it ended up in a seafood market in Wuhan, and then it spread to humanity. That's one theory. And then the other theory is that this was, yes, it started out as a natural thing, the coronavirus thing, but it was then augmented by extra studies, research by biologists. They call this gain of function research. And the theory behind that, why would people do that kind of research? Well, it's actually outlawed to make biological weapons, but you're allowed, I think it's a gray area, to research what kinds of terrible viruses might be out there in order to find even more effective vaccines for them. So it's a very gray area of research. But if I can say that if it was engineered deliberately in gain of function research, then it is actually breaking the Bioweapons Convention, and the persons responsible should be prosecuted. And all the nations of the world, most of them, there's one or two exceptions, have signed this International Bioweapons Convention, making all this kind of research illegal. And one of the things that perplexes me is why it's not been invoked. It should be invoked. So anyway, what I realize is nobody's pulling together all this research, and it's now become subject to sort of intelligence warfare. So I've noted with some alarm that in America, the right wing now are saying, oh, it's all China's fault, let's get China. I think we need to keep calm and just find out the truth about this. Biden's presidency has now announced that they're going to ask American intelligence to find out the cause of this virus. Well, they should have done that a year and a half ago. But also somebody pointed out that America's not got very good intelligence in China anyway. It's very hard to operate in China if you're a spy. And so the only way actually to find out is by invoking the Bioweapons Convention, which then gives UN authority to inspect all these labs. I also think it should not be just China that's possibly caused this. We should recognize that it might be other, this could have been made somewhere else. So I think we, the people, the world, have the right to find out what has caused this virus. So that's why I've launched this thing, the International Commission of Inquiry into the etiology of coronavirus. And I'm doing it completely neutrally as to what the hypothesis is. If it turns out that it's, you know, whatever, let's look at the evidence. And I've written to about 80 neurologists and biologists and virologists, also sociologists of medicine, political theorists, and professors of law. And I've asked them if they want to present evidence. And I've had some positive replies from quite a few of them. You know, in different, both in America, in Australia, in France, and in other countries. So I just want to report that back, really. Now, the World Intellectual Forum is one of the two bodies responsible for this commission. We will monitor, and I would ask for your support with this. Probably in August, we'll have an online gathering like we're doing now for that. So in August, we might not have our normal WIFE symposium. We'll have the Commission into Coronavirus instead for that month. And, you know, I've had a variety of responses. I've had Professor Francis Boyle, who believes strongly that this was engineered. It's a bioweapon that leaked. He's an important thinker because he wrote the American law, which made biological warfare research illegal. So he's a professor of law in America. And then there are other people that said, no, it's not a bioweapon. This is a natural thing. And they're equally convinced. So our job will be to mediate, to moderate, to listen to all sides. And, you know, I will ask your help with that. So that's the state of play, really. And, you know, it's interesting. As I say, American intelligence has initiated a thing. I'm not sure what's happening in India. Maybe somebody would like to comment. Bharti and I tried to contact a virology institute in Pune, which is the leading institute in India. But we didn't hear back. You know, they didn't respond. Surely somebody in Indian scientific circles has you know, perplexed over this. Anyway, that's my report. I just wanted to say this. Anyone that comes across research, if you know colleagues who are, you know, experts in these matters, then ask them to contact us. And if they have evidence, please submit it. Okay, any comments or feedback here before we move on? It's obviously a huge, it's a global problem. Put your hand up. Yeah, Aaron, what would you like to say?
Well, Professor Thomas, it's a very perplexing, you know, and ubiquitous problem since 1.5 years, where reportedly more than 3.5 people are died, you know, what unofficially this number is several times than this. And remember, how about the people's life? It is, you know, metamorphosed like anything, you know, and most of the poor people in developing countries, and forget developing, even developed countries, they have a lot of casualties by this coronavirus. And it is so frustrating that even after this much, you know, 1.5 years, having the World Health Organization also under the auspices of United Nations, even bioweapons treaty, nothing has come out with so precise result that even we do not trace out the origin of this coronavirus. And there's a lot of, you know, cook-up stories. I'm very much sure as a biologist that the hypothesis number one, as you explained just now, that this coronavirus had come through the Wuhan bat lab and from bats, it was just cooked up story. It is not so, because these bats and microorganisms have evolved, even have come up on this earth before than the humans, Homo sapiens. So viruses, bacteria, fungi, these are three mutable microorganisms, and they had been very much useful for the human evolution. Like several, oncogenes, they have come from the viruses to the humans itself, and it has helped rather human evolution and even the human intelligence in several ways. Like the genes have affected from viruses to humans the evolvement of the Homo sapiens. Now, problem, how all of a sudden this coronavirus has come up so strong that it is having same pathogenicity and affect at the 0 degrees Celsius, like in our countries in Europe, even with the Southeast Asia where the 45 degrees there, it is showing quite rapid, and throughout the year it is affecting. And there's no antiviral drug so far available. It seems there are three things in the world that controls this this whole world, and one is petroleum or oil. Other one is this pharmaceuticals, where there's lot of big giants of medical companies and insurance companies, especially, who give insurance, health insurance to the people. And third is arm weapons, marketing between different countries. So arms, pharmaceutical, and this petroleum or oil, they run whole this world, okay, country-wise, geopolitics. And many things, they remain behind the curtain. Even no country talk about, no media talk about. We do not know what is happening between different countries. Now, I also believe that United Nations, the Permanent Security Council, should have more than five members. And we are since waiting several decades that India is not yet part of it, even though India is the second largest country, and it has some substance now. It has a substance to show the progress throughout the world. Why it is so, I don't understand. And I understand now, all of a sudden now, the President of USA has asked that within 3 months they have to find out the origin of the coronavirus. But again, I doubt it will be completed, because the country from where it is certainly evolved, like Wuhan, when they are not allowing the people, scientific fraternity or spy or even any delegations, then how you can trace out the history of this disease spread? And again, the result will be zero, whatever we are having today. So the ultimate onus goes on the government, whatever they are doing in their own capacity to strengthen the medical science and protecting their citizens. But I doubt this is simply a curtain raiser, and I'm sure there will be even more pandemics in near future, because this country is very much expansionist, very much greedy, very much, just like a black hole that can take away every country. Is also there's quite lack of love, peace, and harmony. There's no sense of empathy to humankind. When only such kind of mindset people is there with few countries, I doubt some result may come up. Now only we have to protect ourselves in some way by strengthening our GDP to the medical science and so. Yes, Professor Thomas.
Thank you, Aaron. Yes, a rather gloomy prognosis of China. I would also just say that there are, you mentioned the three oil.
I think your audio is having problem, Professor Thomas.
Could you mute your own? Could you mute yourself? Yeah, that's better. Yeah. So thank you for your sharing. That was, but rather gloomy when it comes to your assessment of China. I'd like to think all cultures have ethics, wisdom at their core. I'd like to think the Chinese have a great learned traditions of Confucius and Taoism and Buddhism and modern philosophical movements in China. There are great intellectuals in China. Somehow we have to reach out as the World Intellectual Forum and make contact with them. I'm hoping my friend in Russia, Professor Chumakov, who went to the World Philosophy Congress in Beijing a couple of years ago, and he knows many great Chinese intellectuals, philosophers. Maybe we can make links and talk with them. I am hoping so. And yes, you're right about the World Health Organization. Its inquiry was disappointing. One of our members for Italy, who is a great, fan of the World Health Organization, pointed to me their report, but they themselves don't know where this thing came from. And they may be doing another inquiry. So our Commission of Etiological Inquiry will run alongside other projects, other initiatives, and I'll report back in our next meeting. But I do think, if you know the work of Camus, the great French intellectual, his novel *The Plague*, it's unfortunately uncannily predictive of what we're living through. And for him, the plague is evil and ignorance. As a philosopher, I want to know if this is just like nature fighting us, or is this our own ignorance? Have we humans actually engineered this? Because our response is different, if you want. And it raises theological questions. So anyway, that's why I've taken the initiative to launch this commission of inquiry. And thank you, for your help. Some of you have helped. Nicola's been helping a lot behind the scenes, giving me suggestions, and I appreciate any others. Now we need to move on and look at our next topic, which is the other thing we've been struggling with as a planet is this conflict that's broken out in the Middle East, unresolved, constantly coming up between Israel and Palestine. And I'm sure that our friend will be rejoining us, Gila. But does anyone want to say anything, from their perspective? How do you see the solution long term? Maybe we should hear from Gila first, because she's been living through this and has been, living literally with rockets going overhead, and has a deep perspective on the origins of this problem. So if Gila would like to share, are you there still? What is the solution to this problem long term, as you see it, Gila? You'll have to unmute because you're still, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's fine.
Great. So I would like to say that it was interesting. My dopamine level has dropped during this conversation, although it was interesting to listen to the love lecture. I wanted to say that it's a matter of vibrations. And I think she was right with the answer that she gave, that the researchers are focused on the biological, chemical level, and that's one level of vibration. And the spiritual love that you have asked about it's in an higher vibration, and it also introduces the connection between the heart and the mind. All the new research focus on that. And maybe we don't have yet the right instruments to depict it, to depict those vibrations. But there are definitely more subtle vibrations, those spiritual ones. And well, I also wonder if they have any affection on the hormonal level. I would think that, I would imagine that yes, because it is connected with the heart at the end, so it has to be. But maybe people haven't researched that yet. Anyway, that's what I had to say about love, and and about this important subject that you are investigating with other people. I wish you luck, you know. I hope that you'll be able to get to the truth. Maybe not now, maybe in a few years or so, because last night I heard that only in the United States, there are 11 laboratories that are working on searching, developing viruses from animals as to develop them as weapons. 11 laboratories. Can you imagine that? So, and that's after everything that happened, yes? So, and I don't think that only to blame the United States. It's, I mean, other countries like China are very much involved as well. So my personal theory, not that I have anything, any knowledge from any source, is that they were working on it. And because it's something that has been searched, you know, in many countries with developed science. And I think that what I heard is that United States was interested in this research. So there might be a collaboration and even a latent collaboration with the United States and China. And you said, someone said that this thing had to be investigated a year ago, but you think that they would like the real facts, the real truth to come out? I think there is a lot, there's a strong will to keep silent some of the truth, I would say. And it would be very difficult. And they say they are engaging now the intelligence to find out the truth. I'm sure that the intelligence agencies already know the truth. The thing is how to present it to us, to the people. And I wish you luck that we will, definitely the fact that you are doing it will motivate them.
That's the plan. That's the plan. Yeah.
Think more about it, okay? And not to be able to ignore or to cover up things easily, okay? And maybe we'll see finally the truth coming out. So that's another comment that I had on this subject. Now for our conflict.
Right.
Well, you see, I heard the Sheila before, and I feel that if I had met Sheila personally, we could have been very good friends. Because we share very similar backgrounds. And you know, the one thing is that it's a very short time to start to understand really this ongoing conflict, because it is a long tale of history. But we'll try a little bit, as I said. I would like to start with a statement. And here is my statement. Those who don't learn from history are very likely to repeat it again. And I would ask you to keep those words in your mind while I'm talking along my presentation. To give you a short and brief reminder of the history of this conflict, I think it's important to do it for people who are less familiar with its history. And I would like to start with the very beginning. It's not going to be a long presentation about that, but still I would like to bring up the facts. So we all heard about Muhammad. He was the first Islamic prophet, and he turned against the Judaism and the Jewish people only after they refused to recognize him as a prophet or as the last prophet. Why I think it's important? Because as I already mentioned, because I'm not sure that you are aware of those facts. The Jewish people in the Muslim Arab countries along the centuries had been treated as a second-class citizens, called by the name nojes, which means garbage, dirty, or dirty dogs. Not only that, they had to pay a protection tax called gige in order to be allowed to live in the Islamic countries. The Christians lived in the Islamic countries did not enjoy a better treatment. Those who were not Muslims are considered to be or called kafirs. And not long ago, we all had received a very strong reminder from the part of ISIS, how they treat kafirs. It was only 3 years ago. Not only that, and I'm sure you are not aware of that fact, that the yellow star was not a Nazi invention. The yellow star was actually given to the Jews in the 2nd century by the Caliph al-Muttaqi in Iraq, in order to distinguish the Jewish people from the Muslims. The Christians enjoyed the same treatment. They had to wear belts as a recognition sign. Yes, those belts that most men wear until today. Since those days, until 1924, the Muslims had conquered parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Their empire had lasted for 1,400 years until they were stopped at the gates of Vienna on the date of 9/11. Yes, my dear friends, 9/11 was not chosen out of the blue. It was chosen for a reason. During these long fights, 270 million people were killed by their sword for their faith and for their God. It is important to be aware of those facts of history. It says a lot about whom the Israelis are dealing with. This big dream of the Muslims to have a worldwide Khalifa or empire hasn't died. It is an everlasting dream. Sometimes the dream is very latent, but the old thought forms of the big dream still exist and furnish their souls, their minds, their imagination, and their will. The big carrier of this big dream today are the Ayatollahs in Iran, with their branches of the Hezbollah in Lebanon, in the northern side of Israel, and with the Hamas people in the southern side of Israel in Gaza Strip. Israel is the big obstacle on the way, an arrow of history that has to be vanished from the world map. So now we can start to understanding the current events. Battles today are not battles only on the battlefield. Battles are the battles on the consciousness of people on the TV screens. And I'm sorry that this is the situation, but war doesn't look nice. There's no way you can make a beautiful, nice war. Those pictures of destruction are not nice ones. And when the Allies in World War II won the Nazis, they destroyed most of the cities of the Germans. It didn't look nice either. And to count the number of the casualties in Gaza Strip compared to the number of casualties in Israel, and for that making the Israel the big bad guy, it's to do a big injustice to Israel and to understanding of the situation, and even to the Palestinians. And I would take a pause now. It's something that I was going to tell you at the end, but I'm going to mention it now. Did you know that the Palestinians, and I differentiate, and you have to differentiate as well, and the media as well, between the Hamas people and the non-involved civilians, as we call them. Did you know that those uninvolved civilians trust better the Israelis with their lives than they trust the Hamas people? This is a captive audience. The civilian Palestinians in Gaza Strip. And they are trapped in their situation. They like to have good relationship with Israel, because along the 73 years that Israel exists, it showed them more mercy, more love, and more care than the Hamas people do to them. But they are afraid to speak. Last night, I saw an interview on the Israeli television where those uninvolved civilians are asking the Israeli interviewer to ask the Israelis. They were talking basically to Israelis through the television, that both people from both sides need to demonstrate together at the southern border, from both sides of the border, for peace and for good living and for coexistence. But do you know what will happen if someone will take it seriously? The Hamas will have a good bloodshed of all the Israelis that will appear there.
Right.
When one looks for solutions,
yeah,
it's very complicated in a situation like this, when those Hamas people have this, unfortunately, this consciousness of hate and a will to kill, and a dream to conquer the world with their truth. Israel never wanted to conquer the world with their truth. We just wanted to exist in our little land that after 2,000 years we were granted, and nothing has been changed since then. Now, if I would like to address the issue of Jerusalem and the Aqsa Mosque, well, this is a great issue for the Hamas people. It always works for them. Where nothing else works, this always works. Al-Qaeda, Al-Aqsa is in danger. Let me tell you, friends, have one less thing to worry about. Al-Qaeda, Al-Aqsa Mosque is not in danger. Since 1967, when Israel has conquered Jerusalem, the Israelis asked the Waqf. The Waqf is the Jordanian religious organization that runs the mosque, Al-Aqsa Mosque. They run it before the mosque, the war, and after the war, Israel has asked them to keep on running it. Israel didn't want to run the mosque for the Muslims. And since then, nothing has been changed. The same policy of freedom of worshiping is applied on the Christian people. The only country that the Christian people in the Middle East enjoy good life and flourishing, and our numbers are not declining, is Israel. And you know what? So what's the problem? If everything is so good, what's the problem? I tell you what's the problem. The problem is when the Israelites, when the Jewish people as well want to practice their religious services in Jerusalem. And when those services collide with the Muslim holidays, that's the problem, because those two crowded together at the same place, that can cause violence, especially if the Hamas I don't know if they say had or used this opportunity that there were going to be elections at the Western Bank. 15 or 14 years, there hasn't been elections in the Western Bank. You know why? Because Abu Mazen, he knows very well that the minute he will have those elections, the Hamas will take over. There will be no more Fatah in charge, the same that it happened in Gaza Street. Because the Hamas is working on their big dream silently. They have silent cells, and when the moment comes, they ignite those silent cells to start make provocations. That's what happened last month, and those worshippers, so-called worshippers, some of them are real worshippers. but some of them were actually Hamas people that used the opportunity to ignite the emotions of the people by this slogan that Al-Aqsa is in danger. And they stored building blocks, fire bottles, knives, fireworks, you mention it, everything that you can imagine to start provocations in Al-Aqsa. And when the Waqf people, and we saw, you don't see it, people, through the BBC or other media, international media services. We saw, because they don't present it to you, we saw videos of the Waqf people trying to stop this activity of those mobs, I would say, and they couldn't handle it. They just couldn't handle it. So police, Israeli police, needs to take over the situation. Otherwise, we would experience anarchy, a total anarchy, and even more provocation. And at the same time, it was not only the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It was done in all the cities of Israel where Arab population and Israeli population are coexisting and live their lives in peace. So they took this opportunity to revolt the people, the feelings of the people. And
Sure.
I would like to
Wind up.
say, 1 minute, it's very important. I would like to say that 20% of the Arabs participated in this violence, but 80% of the Israeli Arabs chose not to participate. You know why? Because 73 years of the existence of the state of Israel has proven them that coexistence is possible, and their lives here are much better than the lives of their fellow friends in other places.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Gila, for your passionate speech. I appreciate you.
I need to speak like this because
very-
don't see the big picture. And you know, last fact, you know, when one of the reasons, besides the other ones, the big ones, one of the reasons that the international media can't cover the real story, one of the reasons is because if they will say the truth, they will no longer be able to cover the story from Gaza again. The head of the UNRWA, head of the UNRWA organization in Gaza tried to speak the truth and said, yes, the Israelis are not targeting the civilians. They are targeting only the buildings that serve as headquarters for ammunition and for the Hamas people to hide, and so and so and so. And you know what? He's not longer on duty. He's not allowed to speak anymore.
Okay.
I think
you've raised so many huge questions. Yeah, thank you very much, Gila. You've raised so many questions. I'm going to respond to some of the points. If you can, sorry, I've had to mute you because we're running out of time here, right? If you can just let others. you see, the thing is, the problem is we do have a Palestinian member for the World Intellectual Forum, and Professor Sari Musabi, who's the rector of East Jerusalem University, but he's not here. I wish he could be here to respond to you and give a proper, you know, your presentation is very detailed. I'm going to try and make a few points myself, simply, as if he was here. The first thing I want to say is the context. I set up the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the Middle East, as you know, with your help. We interviewed various Palestinian intellectuals and artists and Sufis. You and I both share a passionate commitment to peace in this region. I'm very frustrated. We've known each other 20 years and it's still not improved. We're still seeing these ridiculous bombings. You remember well, the Sufi chap in Israel wanted us to go down to Gaza. I wish we'd had time to do it. So like you, I take a bigger picture on this. When you started with the conflict between Muhammad and the Jewish community in Medina, and it's a good place to start. As you know, in my PhD thesis, I looked at the problem of mediation between religious conflicts, disputing, let's say, between Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. Those three are the core of this problem. I've come to the view in my latest book on religious mathematics, I've come to the view we have to analyze what is prophetic intelligence. Maimonides, the great Jewish philosopher, said Moses was the greatest prophet of history, untouchable by anyone else. Islam believes Muhammad was the greatest prophet of history, and there are thousands of intellectuals who say that. Christians believe Jesus was the greatest prophet of history. I, as a philosopher and a scholar of comparative religious philosophy of peace, I find it deplorable that we're still here in 2021 having these wars because we haven't worked out a way of calibrating the differences between different types of prophetic intelligence. And in my latest book on religious mathematics, I've tried to present a methodology whereby we can actually say, look, Moses was the best prophet at this. He was a genius at this thing. Jesus was a genius prophet at this thing. He was great. Krishna was a great, avatar at this thing. Lao Tzu was great at this, and Muhammad was great at this. We need to get a level playing field where we stop these prophetic wars. I believe science, mathematics, and spirituality can begin to develop a sophisticated enough conversation to make that possible. But we do have to stop the bombing. We can't have that discussion whilst our houses are being blown to pieces or our airwaves are being filled with mutual denunciation. So how do we do it? Okay, I'm trying to present, as this war was beginning, it was something that hurt me personally because it was the end of Ramadan. And that's always a very sensitive time in the Islamic world. I don't know the details. Gila's presented a certain, narrative. The narrative that I think the bigger picture is to say that, in a sense, I think the Temple Mount should be policed, not by, native forces. There is an argument, and I just put this forward sensibly, that perhaps some kind of UN peacekeeping force should be on the Temple Mount, guarding the sacred sites, which are universal to all different religions. I don't know what happened with the kickstart of the rioting. Gila's presented the argument that it was their fault. They were piling up bombs and all the rest of it. That hasn't, as far as I know, been verified. At the time Ramadan was happening, I had a guest here who has spent time in Palestine and Lebanon, and whose father is the head of the BBC Middle East correspondence. I think the important thing about trying to see it from both sides is so important. So moving on to solutions, all I'd like to say is that there is only one solution, I believe. And I listened carefully to the UN Security Council speaking about this. They said, they all affirmed the long-term solution, and this includes America and Russia and France and Britain, is a two-state solution. This is what they keep saying. And I would like, if our Palestinian representatives can join us at our next meeting, how are we going to get a viable Palestinian state? There has to be, you see, at the moment, Israel has a state, and those of us that, you know, love Israel and Israelis, it's great, you know, but it has to be in peace with a parallel Palestinian state. How that can be possible, I think we need to set up a commission to find out how to do that. In Gila's magnificent narrative, the only thing that I think was not mentioned and needs to be mentioned, historically speaking, and I'm a historian of this region, I've written stuff about it, there is a tragedy which I think is general fact, that Hamas was deliberately created and augmented and supported by the state of Israel as a way of dividing the Palestinian community. I think Israel's terrible mistake here geopolitically was not to make a peace deal with the largely secular Palestinian Authority under Yasser Arafat. Instead, when Israel was in Gaza and controlling it some years ago, and this is not disputable, I think, Gila. I presume you haven't seen the footage, you don't know the history. It was the Israeli government that actually supported the creation of Hamas, thinking it would be a good idea to divide your enemy. It's an old trick. You divide your enemy, split them into two, and then you can rule. But the trouble is, Israel then created this monster called Hamas. So for you to say it's all Hamas's fault, well, it is, but unfortunately, Israel created the Hamas. So you have to look at that. I'm just respectfully suggesting, look at that history. I'll send you the links. And somehow we have to uninvent the monster. It's like Faust's legend of the wizard that gets it all wrong. He invokes a demon to help him, but then the demon gets out of hand. You know, it's like the golem legend. This is something that, as esotericists, we must be very careful of. If you create a Hamas, it turns back and bites you. This is what happened when America created Taliban. So anyway, there are huge problems, and we can't, in one meeting, solve it. But I think what we can do is begin to sketch out the terrain of the problems. And I would just end my little comment about, I think if we can intellectually disarm, I'm not going to sit here as a Christian and say Christ is the best ever Messiah, the only Messiah, you should all worship him. I don't think a Muslim should say Muhammad is the only prophet, the last prophet. He made mistakes, so did Christ, but so did Moses, and so did, nobody is without blame here, as St. Paul said. Nobody is without sin. So if we start from that place of humility, I think we might be able to get some discussions that can ease these tensions. At the moment, the ceasefire is holding, and I pray that it lasts. That's the only hope, really. Okay, so look, Sheila, you had your hand up. You wanted to comment. Earlier, you'd said some things. Do you want to respond to what Gila and I have been saying here?
Yeah, I think it kind of tallies with what I was saying about when people, individuals and nations go through terrible times, decade after decade after decade. They end up traumatized, so traumatized that they lose the ability to be able to think clearly. And this is a very, very complex situation, no doubt about it. But I still don't understand why it seemed to be sensible to demolish Al Jazeera it just seems insane to me, because we're talking about the fact that the media aren't very good in the world now, that it's very hard for us to see the wood for the trees and know what the truth is. But in my experience, Al Jazeera have actually reported very evenly about the situation, and they haven't necessarily reported against the Israelis, but it was a fact that building was bombed to the ground, and that was a way for the news to be circulated and kind of known about, and it was obliterated. But I don't think that's just in that area. I think it's in the world. I mean, we need to sort out what we do about the way we communicate through the media, and we need to do it as soon as possible, really, because we're all very confused about what's actually going on. And then the next thought I have is, do we really need to know what's going on? If we boil it down, it's horrible. That's all we can say. We know for sure the certain thing is that rockets and bombs are horrible and terrible, and they don't help human beings. And although, yes, we seem to have got through a Second World War by bombing people to smithereens, maybe we just don't need to do that anymore. We need to think of another way, because it's intergenerational trauma and it lasts through the generations and it doesn't go away.
This is true, right. So look, hello to Barty's children, talking about intergenerational.
Yes.
Greetings, they're her nephews, I think.
Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. My name is Felicia.
The next generation peace lover, he especially came to meet Thomas because they appreciate a lot, and they see what Thomas is doing and how I used to attend the meetings and I never misses the meeting. So you could see they can't understand anything, but they are sitting so patiently just to listen and just to see the Thomas. They are in love with you, Thomas. So this is the humanitarian love, the live example, you know.
Well, let's meet again when you're a bit older and you can share.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice to meet you both. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Barty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In response to the last couple of discussions, some good news for a change. We've heard about a terrible war which has been going on, and it's traumatic. And yes, Al Jazeera was bombed, but also 500 houses. What I don't understand is why Palestinian homes were being demolished. I mean, the whole thing is completely untenable. We have to solve this problem, and that has to mean creating a fair, decent, and just Palestinian state, living in peace with Israel. And that's, you know, I think our mission here. I want to share some good news. Yesterday, or no, the day before, I was invited to attend something called the Luxembourg Peace Prize. And one of the organizers is supposed to be on our meeting, but she's not here. Before I give the floor to Christian to finish off with his Delphic Prize and what that involves, I want to share something about the Luxembourg Peace Prize because it was so exciting and it's extremely relevant to what we're talking about. This is a prize given out every year in Luxembourg to several laureates. So anyone on this Zoom call, if you work for peace, you might win it next year, right? And what they do is they highlight people, individuals from all countries in the world who've been working for peace. And it was a live conference in the University of Luxembourg. And the first speaker was a man called Steve Kilala, who I'd not really heard of before. He's an Australian businessman and economist who set up a thing called the Peace Index. He's a mathematical economist. He's tried to find out how can you measure the peace intensity of a given nation. You know, is country X, Y, or Z the more peace-loving? And he's developed very sophisticated models economically to measure these mathematically. And he's been looking at trends over the last 10, 20 years. Is the world generally becoming more peaceful or less peaceful? And what are the criteria that you can measure that? Anyway, he runs an institute for economics and peace. And he was a genius. He gave us a 10-minute talk. He got the prize, which he well deserved. And then we heard from another speaker who sadly said that under the time of the coronavirus, the UN has revealed there have been 258 million domestic violence incidents. 258 million domestic violence incidents since the last year and a half of coronavirus, you know. And this chap who spoke was talking about the arts and peace. What can we do with the arts for peace? He was a photographer called Boniface Mwangi from Kenya. I didn't know this, but in 2007, the people of Kenya had an election, which they then disputed. They didn't, they didn't want to agree with who'd won. And so what they did is they started rioting in the streets, and they had deaths. You know, thousands of people were killed mercilessly, bodies left in the streets, crazy. And it was Kenya, which is normally quite a civilized country. So Boniface, as a photographer, went around the country and he photographed it all. He made like several months of art photography. And then he created an exhibition which toured Kenya. And he used the photography that he'd taken of this horrible massacres to teach the people to stop. And the exhibition toured dozens of places throughout Kenya. And it became very famous. And gradually, when people came to see the wall, it was like Christian's peace wall. He will tell us in a minute about that project. He had this wall of photographs, and people came out in all the villages and towns and were so horrified at what they'd done. They were ashamed and they stopped. And his art helped stop the rioting. Anyway, he was an amazing man, young man, who was honored with the Art for Peace Award. Then we heard a Palestinian and an Israeli, Nasri Barghouti and Meron from Israel. They've created a project called A Land for All, 2 states, 1 homeland, which is like a very visionary peace project for Israel and Palestine, including Gaza. And they spoke, Nasri Barghouti is a Palestinian intellectual, a very great man, I think. These are normal Israeli and Palestinian, and members are from both sides, both communities. They're saying, look, Israel and Palestine, we're actually relatives, we're cousins. They're Ishmaelis, we descend from Jacob, you know, we're all distant relatives of Abraham, we should get on, we have to make peace here. And so they're saying, look, we can have 2 states, like we can have 2 civil authorities, but we share 1 homeland. We call it home. So they've been thinking ahead, what will the solution look like? And it was very amazing to hear. They want 2 states, which then eventually make a federation. Jerusalem would be the capital of both states, and they would have a Palestinian Knesset and an Israeli one, and they would learn to live and disarm. So Hamas, all those rockets would go, all the tunnels would stop, and all the cruelty of those rockets firing would go. Anyway, it was visionary, and they got the prize in Luxembourg yesterday. Then there was a NGO called Water, Peace and Security, run by a Dutch woman, Suzanne Schmeier. They won the award for this big NGO, which is looking at the role of water shortage in conflict around the world. The new wars are going to be about resources. As global warming hits and as people lack basic access to water, you know, this is a serious matter. So this charity NGO, Water, Peace and Security, has been mapping all the water resources on the planet and correlating them with conflict situations. And a very sophisticated data analysis, typical of the Dutch, right? They're supported by the Dutch Foreign Ministry and Dutch Institutes for Peace and so on. Amazing work they're doing on water. And places like I didn't know Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan just nearly went to war over water in Central Asia. I didn't know that. In the Niger region, Mali, there's water wars happening. Egypt and Ethiopia just went to war nearly over water, you know, and it is an underlying thing in the Israel-Palestine thing that somehow the water has to be shared so everyone has enough. Anyway, that was another brilliant thing. Then from a Brazilian woman, Beatrice Buarque, who has created a charity called Words Heal the World. Words Heal the World. She's an amazing woman doing a PhD at Manchester University, and she was talking about how social media has become awash with terrible negativity. And the normal media, you know, films are made, documentaries like targeting the other, the enemy, and so on. She has created a project to make social media a pleasant experience for us, where we share truth, we share love. We don't come away from an hour on Facebook feeling terrible. We feel happy and uplifted. So how can we use words and social media to heal the world? So she won the prize for that. Then we heard from an amazing artist who won the other Arts of Peace Award called Pedro Reyes. He's Mexican. He has taken guns, literally guns like rifles, and he has cut them up and he has turned them into music instruments, music boxes, which play particular tunes. So he's taken the Beretta guns from Italy, they make rifles, Beretta. He's chopped them up and turned them into a music box that plays Vivaldi. You turn a crank and it plays a Vivaldi tune. He's taken Glock pistols from Austria, I think, and turned them into something playing Mozart for Austria. I mean, and he's doing similar work like that, Arts of Peace, from Mexico. He pointed out that Mexico doesn't make guns. It's supposed to be very violent. There's no guns made in Mexico. They're all imported from abroad. And then we heard from the man who designed the peace chairs, another artist. What you get if you win this award as a laureate is a chair, a little chair, because they want peace chairs in every university in the world. I couldn't agree more. We heard from the rector of the University of Luxembourg, who was saying, you know, thank you for coming. This is so important. So please be aware there is good news. There are people working for peace in every part of the world. I haven't been able to tell you all what was done. Somebody spoke from Barcelona, and they're creating a World Peace Forum in Barcelona, in Spain. And they're designing a peace walk along the front of the harbour in Barcelona. And they're going to have stations showing the history of each Nobel Peace Prize laureate in history. So they're building this at the moment, and it will start at a gate. You will walk the 2-mile front of Barcelona along this exhibition of peace laureates. And Barcelona as a city is now wanting to promote peace throughout, not just Barcelona, but the Mediterranean. They're working with Marseille and other cities. And yes, why not Gaza City and Tel Aviv? They're both Mediterranean cities. Why couldn't they have a peace walk on their front, for instance? Barcelona would help that, I'm sure. So that was it. And then we heard another one about consciousness. And I know many people on this call are interested in consciousness studies. We heard from an Austrian woman who won the award. She's running a center for consciousness and conflict resolution and peace. They're looking into the details of what is consciousness. It seems to be made of light, but how? How does light store consciousness? And they're trying to work on developing advanced psychological studies of consciousness in relation to peace. So it was an unbelievably inspirational event. And I just wanted to give us a bit of hope. We also heard from a Nobel Peace Prize winner, an Indian, Kailash Satyarthi, who is an amazing man, who has won the Nobel Prize in economics. And he's invented this concept. He calls it the supply chain of gratitude. Supply chain of gratitude, that when you eat a meal, you should feel gratitude for all the people that grew the food, that marketed it, that bought it, that brought it to the shop. You know, like on this Zoom call, we should be grateful to all the people that have spoken, organized, but also the Zoom people that created the technology. You know, there's thousands of people we should be grateful for. And if we dwelt more in gratitude as people, this is Kailash's point. And if our economic system enabled us to have more gratitude for each other, the need for like ego would go, you know. So anyway, this was a Nobel Prize winner. It was an amazing talk he gave. Right, and now I think we're coming towards the end, but I do want to give Christian the last word. He's doing a very important project, not all of you heard of it, to do with Delphi. And we've talked a bit on this talk about how the arts can heal these problems we're facing as a culture. Christian, just remind us, what is the vision of the Delphic Games? Why is it important?
The vision locks immediately to the key points we all have in mind: peace. Because 3 holy wars were held of the 12 tribes of ancient Greek to own the sanctuary of Delphi. And after 3 wars, the leaders came together and said, let's not fight any longer. Let's unite and let's share the pleasure of all. And until then, for a period of 1,000 years about, the Delphic Games took place 1 year prior to the Olympic Games. Both games were banned in 394, the Olympic Games and the Delphic Games. And it took exactly on the year 1,500 years later that the Olympic Games revived. And 100 years later, 1,600 years after the ban, the Delphic Games of modern times were founded in Berlin, in the city where we had a wall, where we were divided. And it was founded 1994. And I wanted to found the International Delphic Council at a place to express my gratitude for unification. And today we have 76 years after the war. And I realized we have to learn from the past. Without any knowledge of the past, we cannot create a future. We just have to select the wisdom of the past and not the ego so much. So, for example, the Delphic Games, they have a symbolic element. The Olympic Games, as we know, has the fire. For Delphic Games, it's water, the Castalian spring, the holy purification before the games started in ancient times. And so we said, let's learn from Delphi, from ancient times, and let's turn the essence, peace, humbleness, the willingness to serve into our century. Let's do it. Let's not just speak about it. Let's do something. And most lacks are resting on no sense for history, ignoring history, being not trained, because our education system is mainly focusing on money-making business, because this is the future. Education brings money. Instead, peace creates creativity, creates new minds, and gives the help of doing something new. And doing something new were the Delphic Games of modern times. And it was a competition, a presentation, and it was at the same time also exhibition. And we did this 20 years. in five continents, and we tested, can we compare arts? What is comparable, what stands for itself, and what is uncomparable, what has to rest in itself. And so we came up with 6 art categories, 4 are mainly known worldwide, but 2, the scientists said this doesn't exist. Let me repeat it, just a few words. The first was musical arts and sounds. The second was performing arts and acrobatics. The third was language art and rhetoric. The fourth, visual arts. And then come the unknown one, came social arts and communication. And the last the sixth art was ecological arts and architecture. Architecture was known, but ecological as art, social as art, this when we were founded 25 years ago or 27 years ago, people laughed about us. Today, no one laughs. And so I can just say we are in a position, in a time where we can change. I believe we are much more powerful than people and the politician wants us to know. Because the end of culture, of arts and culture, is, to my belief, the end of education. And the end of education is the end of freedom and justice, the end of democracy. We are stronger, and please Google, get in touch. Delphic.org is our website. Make yourself knowledgeable and get ideas. Regenerate your strength, your spiritual muscles. We are much, much stronger than the so-called leading powers want us to have. Thank you. And thank you, Thomas, for this meeting.
Thank you very much, Christian, for your kind words. And well, we've had our 2-hour slot, and I think we'll finish there. I know we haven't heard everyone's points, sadly, and obviously there are many other details we could have gone into. And the issue of the war in Gaza and Palestine, you know, it's something we need now to focus is on the solutions. So I hope to bring good news that we can get our Palestinian colleagues to join us next time, and that Gila can also discuss. And I will be writing something about this in our next newsletter. So look, thank you to everyone that's Kate, did you want to say anything? You haven't spoken at all in our meeting. How do things look from your perspective? Do you think you could use some of your computer science? You've been developing software and so on, haven't you? And you got a grant to, in fact, in Berlin, near where Christian works, you've been living there. Can you invent some software for peace for us? Is that possible?
That's good.
Seems like it is possible, yes, but it is true what you were saying, Thomas, about the promising facts that something is moving and we can see the progress going on. And in regards to the first talk by Kanu of the Neuroscience and Love, I was thinking about the neurofeedback, which is a growing field in the computer science and correlated with the neuroscience, which has this brain waves attached that can heal variety of mental illnesses, and people are working on this and designing new applications. So yeah, this can go further, but
anyway, you found it interesting today, I hope. And I would like to say that Kate has told me that she was able to do her master's degree partly in Stockholm and partly in Paris because of the European Union, because it makes grants available, which encourages students to study in different countries, right? And then they gave you a grant to do an entrepreneurship project using your skills that you got in academia, you know, helping a company or an organization in Berlin, or, you know. So, and you're Latvian, for God's sake, who did your degree in Scotland. So, I mean, to me, this is a sign of hope. We have to get that kind of internationalism. Why? I used to be on a committee which met in London to try and develop a European Union for the Middle East. We met with people from Lebanon and Syria and Israel and Palestine and everywhere. I still think that model is probably the long-term solution for the Middle East. Sharing resources of genius and ideas. We have to get, you know, disarmament out there to people like the Hamas and the other extremists who think violence is the route. No, non-violence is the only way. We cannot solve the problems of Israel, Palestine with violence. It cannot be done. And so non-violence is so important. And when I had my visitor from Lebanon staying here a couple of weeks ago, I asked her the Arabic word for non-violence. She's got a degree in Arabic studies. And I said, you know, is there not a movement for non-violence in Palestine, in the Arab world? And she couldn't actually tell me the word for non-violence. Like in Sanskrit, it's ahimsa, and we use non-violence a lot in English. Well, I'm still waiting to hear the word for non-violence in Arabic. And so, you know, this is part of the problem, isn't it? It's a long-term cultural problem. But anyway, look, can I just say thank you for everyone that's participated and all the ideas. Let's go away from this inspired, I hope, to work more for peace, but using our intellect, our mind, our knowledge. That's what the World Intellectual Forum is for. And do tell people about it and, you know, spread the light, okay? That's how we get rid of the darkness. Light the candle in your hand, as Rumi said, okay? Right, salam, shalom, pax, mir, and blessings to everyone. Thank you for coming.